Hello everyone. This is a Christmas-themed horror story, so keep that in mind. Better late than next year, right? I hope you had a lovely holiday and new year. And as always, thank you for listening. See you all soon. Part 1. The morning sun casts a pale light over the scene as I pull up. The flashing red and blue lights of the squad cars casting an eerie glow over the small, idyllic village of Saranac Lake. I'd spent the better part of my career as a detective for New York's 5th Precinct, dealing with the grit and grime of the city. The days were long and nights were perilous as I navigated through the underbelly of a city that never sleeps. But despite everything, the danger, the sleepless nights, the encounters with the worst of humanity, I loved my job. There was something about the pursuit of justice, of bringing closure to those who had been wronged, that fueled me. Then, one fateful evening, everything changed. My wife, Julia, was involved in a fatal accident. A hit and run that shook the very foundation of my world. I threw myself into finding her killer with a fervor that bordered on obsession. But the case remained cold. The perpetrator was never found, and the lack of closure gnawed at me with a relentless intensity. The constant reminders of her absence, the echoes of her laughter in our now empty apartment, the unresolved case file that sat on my desk. It all became too much. The emptiness cast a shadow over everything I knew and loved. I needed a change of scenery, a chance to breathe, to heal. So, when a position for a senior investigator opened up in a quiet part of upstate New York, I jumped at it. I thought I had left that life behind, the never-ending stream of difficult cases, one bleeding into the next. Yet here I am, on Christmas Eve, facing a grim reminder that no place is immune to crime. I see the cozy lake house nestled on the shores of Saranac Lake, standing isolated, cordoned off with police tape. The snow gently falls, adding a serene contrast to the chaotic scene before me. What strikes me most, amidst the flurry of uniformed officers and patrol vehicles, is the distinct lack of Christmas decorations. On the house, in a town where practically every building is adorned with festive lights and wreaths, this absence feels like a silent scream in the stillness of the winter morning. I glance over at my partner, Olga, her expression grim yet determined. She may be a rookie, but she's got resolve in her steely blue eyes. Yet I can't help but notice a slight quiver in her posture, a subtle hint of uncertainty, maybe even dread. This is her first homicide case. I remember my first time, and nothing ever quite prepares you for when the reality of death hits you. Are you holding up? I ask, my voice low but steady. I'm fine, she replies quickly, a bit too quickly. I can tell she's not fine. The tension in her shoulders, the way she avoids looking directly at the house, it all speaks volumes. I'm not the best at giving pep talks, always been more a man of action than words, but I know she needs it. Listen, Volkova, I say, keeping my voice steady. Homicides are tough, but you've got good instincts, and you're here because you're capable. Stick to the facts, keep a level head, and we'll get through this together. She listens, her eyes fixed on the ground for a moment before meeting mine again. She nods, a faint smile crossing her lips, a glimmer of appreciation in her eyes. Thanks, Jen. I needed that, she says, her voice steadier. I won't let you down. We exit our unmarked cruiser, a crunch of snow under our boots breaking the stillness of the morning. Our breaths create small clouds of mist in the cold air as we approach the house. The scene is quiet, save for the muted conversations of the officers scattered around. As we near the entrance, an officer, his face weathered and stern, steps forward. You folks from State Police? He asks, eyeing us cautiously. I reach into my coat, pulling out my badge. Yes, I'm Detective Dominic Chen. I introduce myself. And this is my partner, Detective Olga Volkova. The officer gives a nod, a silent acknowledgement of our jurisdiction. "I'm Sergeant Timothy Reynolds," he says, gesturing towards the house. "Come on, I'll walk you through what we've got." Reynolds led us through the front door, its frame marked by the telltale signs of a forced entry. Inside, the air is heavy, tingled with a metallic scent of blood. As we navigate through the narrow hallway, I notice how the home speaks of a life once lived in quiet simplicity. Old photographs line the walls, memories frozen in time. Entering the living room, we're greeted with a jarring sight. The furniture is upturned, indicating a struggle. Splatters of blood adorn the walls and floor, a gruesome tableau that tells a story of violence. It's clear this wasn't a random act. The destruction is too personal, too targeted. Reynolds' voice is somber as he fills us in. "The victims are Harold and Edith Collins," he starts. "Both were in poor health. Mr. Collins had a stroke last year, and Miss Collins was battling breast cancer." As he speaks, I glance around, realizing that their physical limitations must have prevented them from putting up the Christmas lights this year. Then, something catches my eye. A small Christmas tree, tucked in the corner of the room, adorned with a few simple ornaments and a string of twinkling lights. It's a silent witness to the horror that unfolded in this room. Beneath us, a scattering of wrapped presents lies untouched, their cheerful colors jarring against the dark backdrop of the crime scene. "Who found them?" I ask, keeping my tone professional despite the emotional weight of the scene. "It was their home nurse," Reynolds replies, leading us through the house towards the backyard. The first thing that hits me is the breathtaking view. Saranac Lake, in all its glory, stretches out before us, a vast expanse of frozen tranquility. The surface of the water, partially covered with a thin layer of ice, reflects the pale morning light, creating a serene atmosphere that feels worlds away from the grim reality we are here to confront. But the serenity is shattered by the sight that meets us a few feet away from the house. There, lying on the pristine snow, are the bodies of Harold and Edith. It's a haunting image. They lie spread-eagled, their arms and legs extended as if they were mid-motion in creating snow angels. I crouch down next to them, taking in the scene methodically, trying to piece together the final moments of the Collins. It's clear from the state of the bodies that they were attacked with brutal force. The wounds are deep and savage, indicative of an axe or hatchet. The cuts are irregular, haphazard, not the work of a skilled assailant, but rather someone frenzied, uncontrolled. Their final moments were gruesomely violent. The lack of blood around the bodies suggests they were placed there post-mortem. It's a meticulous, deliberate act. Someone wanted to send a message, or perhaps fulfill some twisted fantasy. I stand up and turn to Olga, who's been silently observing the scene. Her face is a mask of professionalism, but the slight furrowing in her brow tells me she's processing, trying to make sense of the senseless. "No defensive wounds," she notes. "They probably didn't even see it coming." I nod in agreement, my mind racing through the possibilities. "Sergeant Reynolds," I call out, turning to our local counterpart, who's been disrespectfully giving us space to examine the scene. "We'll need to canvass the area, talk to neighbors, anyone who might have seen or heard something, and we'll need the full list of people who had access to the Collins home." Reynolds nods, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We'll get right on it. I'll have my team start the neighborhood sweep." We began our initial assessment, methodically examining the area for any clues that might have been overlooked. The blanket of snow acts as both an ally and adversary in our investigation. It preserves some evidence while potentially burying others. Olga and I split up, covering different sections of the backyard. The cold bites at our skin, but we're too focused to mind. As I move further away from the grim tableau, something catches my eye. A set of snowmobile tracks leading away from the house. The tracks are distinct, cutting through the otherwise undisturbed snow. They start near the back of the house, veering off into the dense line of trees that mark the property's boundary. Before I could examine them further, Olga's voice pierces the silent air, urgent yet controlling. "Dominic, over here!" I quickly make my way toward her, noticing the pair of faint footprints she's found. They lead towards a small tool shed, partially hidden by a cluster of bare trees. The snow around the footprints is lightly dusted, suggesting they aren't recent, but they are the first solid lead we've had. Olga and I exchange a glance, an unspoken agreement to proceed with utmost caution. We approach the shed, our sidearms drawn. With my left hand, I gently push the door open, while my right hand grips my Glock firmly, ready for any threat that might present itself. The door swings open, revealing the dim interior of the shed. We pause for a moment, allowing our eyes to adjust to the subdued light filtering through the dusty windows. The shed is cluttered, filled with gardening tools, old paint cans, and various bits of hardware. But it's immediately clear that there's no one inside. The sense of relief is brief, however, as our attention is drawn to a conspicuous gap on the wall-mounted tool rack. Amongst the neatly hung shovels, rakes, and other gardening implements, there's an empty space where a tool should be. It's outlined with a faint layer of dust, suggesting that whatever was there had been in place for a while before being recently removed. Olga steps closer, her eyes narrowing as she examines the empty spot. "Looks like a missing axe," she observes, pointing to the shape of the outline. "Could be our murder weapon. We need to get forensics in here," I say, holstering my sidearm. We head back inside the house, our steps heavy with the weight of our findings. As Olga makes the call to bring in the forensics team, I take a moment to look around the living room once more. My eyes are again drawn to the small Christmas tree in the corner of the room. The twinkling lights cast a soft glow on the wrapped presents beneath it. Most of the gifts have tags indicating they're from friends and family, simple tokens of love and care. But one present, tucked away at the back, stands out. It's wrapped in plain red wrapping paper, the bow slightly askew, as the tag reads, "To Harold and Edith, from Santa Claus." The oddity of the tag, especially considering the couple's age and the situation, piques my curiosity. With gloved hands, I pick up the gift, feeling its weight and size. It's not particularly heavy, but there's something about it that feels deliberate, intentional. The handwriting on the tag is neat, almost meticulous, which contrasts with the haphazard wrapping. I carefully peel back the tape, mindful of not destroying any potential evidence. As the paper falls away, a small, plain box is revealed. I lift the lid and find inside a simple USB drive. No markings, no indication of its contents. "Look at this," I say, holding up the USB drive. Olga's eyes widen slightly. "That's unusual. Could be anything on there. We need to get this to the tech team ASAP." As the morning progresses, the quiet serenity of Saranac Lake is further disturbed by the arrival of the forensics and tech teams. The tech team sets up a secure laptop in the dining room, away from the chaos of the ongoing investigation in the living room and outside. Olga and I watch intently as one of the technicians inserts the drive into the laptop. The screen flickers to life, revealing a series of video files. We gather around the laptop, the room silent except for the low hum of the machine. The technician clicks on the first file, and the sound of children singing Christmas carols fills the room. It's a jarring audio backdrop, given the grim scene just a few rooms away. We listen as the carols play out, each video clip featuring a different group of children singing classic holiday songs. There's an eerie feeling to these seemingly innocent videos, a sense of foreboding that grows with each passing moment. Then, as we reach a clip titled, "Santa Claus is Coming to Town," something shifts. The familiar melody starts, but it's abruptly cut off. The screen goes dark for a moment, and when it comes back on, the scene has changed dramatically. A figure appears, dressed in a Santa suit, but this is no jolly, red-cheeked Saint Nick. The suit is tattered, the colors faded, and the Santa mask he wears is grotesque, with twisted features and empty, staring eyes. His voice, digitally distorted, sends a chill down my spine. "Ho, ho, ho," he begins, his voice unnaturally deep and menacing. Welcome to my special holiday performance.
What the hell? Olga exclaims.
The spirit of the season has been lost and forgotten.
He sneers, his voice taking on a mocking tone.
Harold and Edith, pillars of the community. Where was their holiday cheer? Where were the lights, the songs, the joy?
He paces back and forth in what looks like a dimly lit room, the camera struggling to keep him in focus. As he moves, he gestures wildly, as if performing for an unseen audience.
They denied the essence of Christmas, the very heart of it. They needed to be reminded, to be taught a lesson.
He continues, his words sending a shiver down my spine. The man's logic is twisted, his reasoning chillingly detached from any semblance of reality. As he speaks, it becomes increasingly evident that this wasn't just a random act of violence, but a targeted attack driven by a deranged motive. The lack of decorations at the Collins house, something initially seen as a minor detail, now appears to be the trigger for this horrific act.
Those who forget the spirit of the holidays must pay the price.
He rants.
I am the enforcer of cheer, the harbinger of Yuletide justice.
The killer's proclamation grows more ominous as the video progresses.
Tonight,
he declares, his voice laced with a twisted excitement.
I will wander the village. Those homes filled with the sound of Christmas music, with lights shining bright, will receive my blessing. Holiday tidings to celebrate the season's joy.
His demeanor shifts as he continues.
But for those who remain silent, who shun the spirit of Christmas, they will face my wrath. They will learn, as Harold and Edith did, the price of forgetting the true meaning of this time of year.
The video suddenly cuts to a scene of the Collins house, filmed from a distance. It's clear he'd been watching them, planning his move. The video then abruptly ends, leaving us in a stunned silence. Olga is the first to break the silence. This is sick. It's like he's living in his own twisted fantasy. He's delusional. I stand there, my mind racing to process the chilling words and images we've just witnessed. We need to act fast, I say. He's planning something tonight. This isn't just about the Collins anymore. It's about anyone in this village who doesn't meet his twisted standards of holiday cheer. I call Sergeant Reynolds over, quickly briefing him on the situation. You need to mobilize the entire force, I stress. Every available officer should be out on the streets, ensuring people's safety. We should also set up a hotline for any suspicious activity related to this case. We should warn the locals, advise them to either display some form of Christmas decoration or stay somewhere else for the night, Olga suggests. The idea of causing a widespread panic on Christmas Eve is unsettling, but the safety of the community is paramount. I run my hand through my hair, feeling the weight of the decision. Let's do that. I agree, reluctantly, my voice firm despite the uncertainty churning inside me. But let's keep it as calm as possible. We don't want to create hysteria. As the day unfolds, we work against the clock, coordinating with the local police force under the mounting pressure. The village is a hive of activity, officers moving door to door, advising residents while trying to maintain a semblance of calm. The hotline is set up and calls start coming in, but most are false alarms or well-meaning tips leading nowhere. Back at the crime scene, forensics meticulously collects every piece of evidence. The snowmobile tracks outside lead to a dead end, vanishing into the dense forest surrounding the village. The team manages to lift a partial print from the wrapping the killer used, but not enough to run through the databases. As nightfall approaches, the tension intensifies. Olga and I retreat to the police station, transforming a small conference room into our temporary command center. The walls are lined with maps of the area, photographs of the crime scene, and notes on potential leads. The atmosphere is thick with the urgency of the situation, and the clock ticking towards Christmas Day adds an ominous undertone to our efforts. I'm poring over the Collins' personal records, searching for any connection, any detail that might have been overlooked, while Olga calls out from across the room.
"Chen, come look at this."
She's been combing through the local social media groups, tracking any unusual activities or posts. What she's found sends a chill down my spine. A series of posts from a local man, Nathaniel Brooks, stands out. His profile is a collage of disturbing imagery and rants about the loss of traditional values. His fixation on Christmas traditions and his disdain for those who don't celebrate in the proper way mirror the sentiments expressed in the killer's video. We delve deeper into Nathaniel's background. Locals say he's a loner, mostly keeping to himself. His history reveals a troubled childhood, bouncing from one foster home to another, each experience more harrowing than the last. Records show a pattern of mental health issues, largely untreated due to his distrust of institutions. Our tech team analyzes the footage for any metadata that might have been inadvertently left on the file. They scrutinize the background for distinctive features, anything that might give away the location. It's painstaking work, but finally, they find something. A glimpse of a unique tree species visible through a window in the background. One that's native only to a specific area near Saranac Lake. Cross-referencing this information with local forestry records, we narrow down our search to a secluded region on the outskirts of the village. Satellite imagery helps us identify a few isolated cabins within this area. One in particular stands out, a cabin registered under a pseudonym that, upon further investigation, links back to Nathaniel Brooks. It's the kind of place that someone would choose if they wanted to stay hidden, away from prying eyes. The details fit too well with our suspect's profile, and we can't afford to ignore this lead. I immediately call the district attorney's office, laying out the evidence and the urgency of the situation. The prosecutor is quick to understand the gravity, and within an hour, we have a signed search warrant in hand. As dusk settles over Saranac Lake, we organize a small team of state troopers and local police and make our way to Brooks' cabin. The cabin is located deep in the woods, a good distance from the nearest road. We leave our vehicles and proceed on foot, navigating the dense forest under the cloak of twilight. The crunch of snow under our boots and the distant call of a lone owl are the only sounds breaking the silence of the winter evening. I glance over at Olga. Her face is illuminated by the beam of her flashlight cutting through the darkening woods. "Stay close to me and keep your eyes peeled," I remind her in a low voice. Her response is a silent nod, her icy blue eyes scanning the surroundings. As we approach the cabin, the eerie atmosphere intensifies. Brooks' place is surrounded by an excessive amount of Christmas decorations, but there's nothing joyful about them. The lights are a mix of harsh blues and reds, blinking erratically. Twisted figures of elves and reindeer populate the yard, their expressions more menacing than merry. A large, dilapidated Santa figure stands near the entrance, its once jolly face now cracked and peering soullessly into the night. The sight of a snowmobile parked haphazardly near the cabin solidifies our suspicions. Its tracks, identical to the ones we had found at the Collins house, are a clear indication that we've come to the right place. We fan out, taking positions around the cabin, ensuring no exit is left uncovered. I signal to Olga and two other officers to follow me to the front door. With my hand resting on the sidearm, I lead the way up the creaky steps, the sound of our footsteps seeming unnaturally loud in the stillness. We position ourselves by the door, the tension palpable in the frigid air. I knock forcefully, announcing our presence. "Nathaniel Brooks, this is the New York State Police. We have a warrant to search the premises. Open the door." Silence greets us. The only response is the creak of the dilapidated decorations in the cold breeze. I knock again, louder, repeating our announcement. Still, there's no answer, no sign of movement within. I exchange a look with Olga and the other officers, a silent consensus forming. "Prepare to breach," I whisper, signaling to the officer carrying the ram. We step back, giving him space as he positions himself in front of the door. With a swift, practiced movement, he slams the ram against the door, the sound echoing through the woods. After a couple of forceful hits, the door gives way, swinging open to reveal the dark interior of the cabin. We enter the cabin, weapons drawn, cautiously moving through the threshold. The faint glow of our flashlight reveals a living space consumed by chaos and neglect.
Tattered curtains hang limply at the windows, swaying gently in the draft. The air inside is stale, heavy with the scent of mold and something acrid that I can't identify. As we progress deeper into the cabin, the sound of a Christmas carol playing on a record player becomes audible. The melody is hauntingly familiar. Silent Night, but it's played at a slower speed, giving it a surreal, almost ghostly quality. We methodically clear each room, finding no one inside. Finally, we reach the room where the record player is located. The sight that greets us is unsettling, a cluttered space filled with bizarre trinkets and disturbing drawings plastered on the walls. The record player sits on a rickety table, its needle dragging across the vinyl in a slow, methodic rhythm. As I step closer, something catches my eye. A series of wires running from the record player, intricately connected to what appears to be a homemade explosive device. The realization hits me like a punch to the gut. The record player is rigged to set off the explosives when the record ends.
Explosives! I yell, my voice sharp with urgency. Everyone out, now!
Olga and the other officers react instantly, turning on their heels and sprinting towards the exit. We move as fast as we can, the haunting strains of Silent Night chasing us as we evacuate the cabin. I realize with a sinking heart that we're not going to make it out the front door in time. The music from the record player is reaching its final notes. A twisted countdown.
Window!
I shout. I see Olga hesitate for a split second, her eyes wide. I don't wait for her to react. I grab a heavy chair and hurl it to the nearest window. The glass shatters, scattering shards into the snow-covered ground outside. Without a second thought, I grab Olga by the arm and practically throw her towards the broken window. As soon as she's clear, I follow, heaving myself through the narrow opening. We tumble onto the snow-covered ground outside, the shock of the cold momentarily stunning us. Turning back, I see the other officers following suit, diving out of the windows and doors, any exit they can find. We scramble to our feet, racing away from the cabin as fast as the deep snow allows. The final notes of the carol play out, a foreboding silence falling for a brief moment. Then, with a deafening roar, the cabin erupts into a ball of fire and smoke, the force of the explosion sending shockwaves through the forest. The night sky is briefly illuminated by the fiery blast. The force knocks me off my feet, sending me sprawling into the snow. Debris rains down around me as I huddle on the ground, ears ringing and hearts racing. Scrambling to my feet, my first thought is Olga. I call out her name, my voice straining against the disorienting aftermath.
Volkova!
There's no immediate response, the smoky air thick with the scent of charred wood and explosives. My flashlight, still clutched in my hand, cuts through the haze as I search frantically. Then, a few feet away, I spot her. Olga is lying on the snow, dazed and disoriented. I rush over, my mind racing with concern. For a split second, as I look down at her disheveled form in the snow, my mind plays a cruel trick on me. I see Julie, her broken body and lifeless after the hit-and-run accident that tore her away from me. I blink hard, forcing the haunting image from my mind, refocusing on the present. Kneeling beside her, I quickly scan her for injuries.
Olga, can you hear me?
I ask, gently shaking her shoulder. Her eyes flutter open, meeting mine with a look of shock.
Jen,
she murmurs, her voice barely above a whisper. She manages to sit up, her face etched with a mix of pain and confusion.
I think I'm okay,
she says, more to herself than to me. A quick assessment reveals no serious injury, just a few cuts and bruises. I got you, I reassure her, offering my hand to help her up. She grips it firmly, pulling herself to her feet with a grunt of effort. I quickly turn my attention to the other officers. My flashlight sweeps across the snowy ground, looking for any signs of the others. That's when I see him, Sergeant Reynolds, lying motionless and a few yards away. My heart sinks as I rush to his side. The blast has thrown him against a tree, and it's clear he's gravely injured. I kneel beside him, assessing his condition with a sinking feeling. His breathing is shallow, his face pale and contorted in pain. I call out to Olga, my voice urgent.
Volkova, get over here. We need help.
She's by my side in an instant. her training kicking in as she assesses the situation. She barks into the radio.
Officer down. We need immediate medical assistance. Repeat. Officer down.
I try my best to provide first aid. His injuries are severe, and I do my best to stem the bleeding. But it's clear that he needs more help than we can provide here in the woods. The sergeant's eyes flicker open, meeting mine. He tries to speak, but only a faint whisper comes out. I lean in closer, trying to catch his words. "Jen," he whispers, his voice barely audible over the crackling flames and distant sirens. "Hey, get the fucking bastard." I nod, fighting back the emotion that threatens to overwhelm me. "I will. I promise." His hand weakly grasps mine, a silent plea for reassurance. Make sure." His voice trails off, his grip loosening. Reynolds' eyes close slowly, and despite our efforts, his breathing becomes more labored, eventually stopping altogether. The reality of the situation hits me hard. This isn't just a chase for a deranged killer anymore. He killed one of our own. It's personal. Part 2. As we drive back to the station, the streets of Saranac Lake transform before our eyes. Every house we pass is ablaze with Christmas lights, their colors vivid against the darkening sky. The music from these homes is so loud that it seeps into our cruiser. It's clear that word has spread about Brooks' twisted proclamation. Those homes displaying festive cheer will be spared his wrath. Olga breaks the silence. "It's like a nightmare before Christmas," she says, her voice heavy with disbelief. "They're scared to death." I nod, my mind racing with the gravity of our situation. Brooks has turned this holiday into a weapon, his twisted logic forcing the entire village into a show of festive compliance. But amidst the display of enforced joy, a radical idea begins to take shape in my mind. "Volkova," I say, turning to her with a determined look. "What if we did the exact opposite?" She looks at me, confusion evident in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "We'll be the only house without lights or music," I explain, my plan becoming clearer with each word. "We'll be the one place that defies his twisted rule. It's risky, but it might be our only chance to draw him out into the open before he strikes again." Olga considers this for a moment, her gaze returning to the road. "It's a bold move, but how do we ensure it doesn't backfire? We'll be sitting ducks." "We'll have backup in place, out of sight. They'll be ready to move in the moment Brooks shows up. And we'll be prepared, too," I explain, feeling the weight of the decision. Olga lets out a long breath, her decision evident in her resolved expression. "All right, let's do it." We arrive back at the police station, and the atmosphere is charged with grief. News of Sergeant Reynolds' death has spread quickly among the officers, and there's a palpable sense of anger and a thirst for justice. As Olga and I lay out our plan, the response from the team is immediate and unanimous. They're all in. We find a suitable house on the outskirts of town, an old, somewhat neglected property that's owned by the police chief. It's perfect for our needs, isolated, with a clear view of the approaching road and enough space around it to set up our backup without being seen. We spend hours preparing, ensuring every detail is meticulously addressed. The house must appear occupied, but devoid of any festive cheer. We leave lights on in various rooms, creating an illusion of life within, yet conspicuously absent about any Christmas decorations or music. It's a silent statement of defiance against Brooks' twisted demands. Inside, we set up a command center in the living room, with monitors connected to hidden cameras we've placed around the property. The house is wired with microphones, allowing us to hear even the faintest noise from outside. We're taking no chances. If Brooks takes the bait, we'll be ready for him. Olga and I are armed and dressed in civilian clothes to blend in, should our perp get a glimpse of us from a distance. Outside, our backup is strategically positioned, hidden in the surrounding trees and bushes, their presence undetectable to the untrained eye. The wait is excruciating. The tension inside the house is palpable, a mix of anticipation and dread. Every shadow that moves, every whisper of wind against the windows sets our nerves on edge. We communicate in hushed tones, our eyes constantly flickering to the monitors, watching for any sign of movement outside. Hours tick by, and the darkness outside deepens. The clock in the living room chimes midnight, signaling Christmas Day. The atmosphere feels surreal, almost like we're suspended in time, waiting for a ghost to materialize. Then, around 2 a.m., I feel it. A shift in the air, an inexplicable sense that something is amiss. My instincts are screaming that something is wrong. I lean closer to Olga, my voice low and urgent. "Something's off," I whisper, my eyes locked on the monitors. "Can you feel it?" Olga nods, her expression tense. "Yeah, it's like the calm before a storm." I quickly scan all the camera feeds, looking for anything out of place. The images show nothing but the quiet, empty road and the surrounding woods, bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight. But my gut tells me we're not alone. "All units, stay alert," Olga murmurs into the mic. "We might have company." The soft crackle of the microphone breaks the heavy silence in the room, catching our attention. It's a faint sound, almost imperceptible. But it's there, a slight rustling, like someone moving through the underbrush outside. I notice something on one of the monitors, a brief flicker in the corner of the screen, a shadow that wasn't there before. Then, I see the blind spot in our defenses, a small patch of woods just to the north of the house. It's a minor oversight, but in situations like this, minor oversights can be fatal. "Olga, the north side," I say in a hushed tone. "We don't have eyes there." Her eyes widen with the realization. "Shit," she mutters, reaching for her radio. "All units, check the north perimeter, now." I move swiftly to the window, peering into the darkness. The moon casts eerie shadows, but it's hard to see past the dense thicket. My hand tightens around my Glock. Just as Olga relays the order, a faint but distinct sound pierces the silence outside the house. The creak of a floorboard upstairs. It's subtle, yet unmistakably out of place. My head snaps up, my eyes locking with Olga's. The realization hits us simultaneously. Brooks is inside the house. I quickly whisper into my radio. "Code red, need immediate backup inside the house." We move in tandem, weapons drawn, each step measured and silent as we ascend the creaking staircase. My hand signals to Olga to cover me as I take the lead, ascending the stairs with silent steps, every sense heightened to its fullest. The old wooden stairs groan softly under our weight, despite our careful movements. Reaching the top of the stairs, we pause, listening. The house is silent, save for the distant howl of the wind outside. We move down the hallway, methodically checking each room. The dim light filtering in through the window casts long, ominous shadows. As we approach the last room at the end of the hallway, a sudden noise from within makes us freeze. It's a low, muffled sound, like someone shifting their weight. I nod to Olga, indicating that I'll enter first. She positions herself by the door, ready to provide cover. With one swift motion, I kick the door open and step inside, gun raised, ready to confront whatever awaits us. The room is empty, save for a small, open window where the curtains flutter in the breeze. It's a decoy, a distraction. We quickly realize the gravity of our mistake. As we turn to exit the room, a figure emerges from the shadows of the adjoining bathroom, moving with a swift, predatory grace. It's Brooks, his face obscured by his grotesque Santa mask adorned with a disturbingly wide grin. Before we can react, he lunges at Olga, knocking her off balance. The two grapple fiercely, but Brooks' sheer size and unexpected agility give him the advantage. In a split second, he manages to disarm Olga, her gun clattering to the floor. "Jen!" Olga yells, struggling against Brooks' iron grip. Her voice is laced with both anger and desperation. Brooks presses a razor-sharp blade against Olga's throat, his eyes visible through the eye holes of the mask, gleam with a mix of madness and delight. The razor glints menacingly on the dim light, its edge pressing dangerously against Olga's skin. I aim my gun at Brooks, but he's using her as a human shield. Every angle I try is blocked by Olga's body, making it impossible to get a clear shot without risking her life.
Let her go, Brooks.
I shout, my voice echoing through the hallway. Brooks' eyes flick to mine, a twisted smile forming beneath his mask.
Drop your weapon.
He sneers, his voice muffled but clear.
Or she dies.
I hesitate, weighing my options. If I shoot, Olga could get hurt, but if I don't, Brooks could escape, or worse. Brooks, I call out, my voice steady despite the racing of my heart.
Think about what you're doing. This doesn't have to end badly.
But he's beyond reason, lost in his deluded fantasy.
End badly?
He cackles, the sound muffled by the mask.
This is the grand finale, Detective. A Christmas spectacle.
The tension is unbearable. Olga's eyes meet mine. I can hear her trying to signal something. I lock eyes with Olga, and in that brief moment, a silent communication passes between us. She's readying herself to make a move, a risky gamble, but it's our only chance. I lower my weapon slightly, feigning compliance.
Okay, Brooks,
I say with a forced calmness. I'm putting the gun down. Brooks's attention shifts to me, his grip on Olga slacking just enough. In that split second of distraction, Olga drives her elbow hard into his ribcage, using all her strength. The impact knocks the wind out of him, his grip on her loosening. She swiftly ducks away, rolling to the side and out of the line of fire. In one fluid motion, I raise my pistol and aim. Brooks, momentarily stunned and gasping for air, looks up just in time to see the muzzle of my gun. Brooks, recovering from Olga's strike, lunges at me with a wild, desperate fury. His mask, now askew, reveals a twisted snarl of rage. There's no time for second thoughts. Without hesitation, I pull the trigger. The shot rings out, echoing through the silent hallway. The bullet finds its mark, striking Brooks squarely between the eyes. His grotesque mask shatters upon impact, pieces flying as he falls backward, hitting the ground with a thud. The threat is neutralized instantly. The killer lying motionless on the floor, a pool of blood forming around his head. The immediate threat neutralized, my first instinct is to check on Olga. She's sitting on the floor, her back against the wall, her breaths come in short, ragged gasps. A look of shock etched on her face.
Olga,
I say softly, kneeling beside her. My hand rests lightly on her shoulder, offering a silent reassurance.
Are you okay?
She nods slowly, still trying to catch her breath.
Yeah, I'm okay.
She manages to say, her voice shaking. I can see her hands trembling slightly. Take a moment. Just breathe, I tell her gently.
You did good, Volkova. Really good.
I told her, my tone sincere.
Thanks, Dominic,
she says, a faint, grateful smile crossing her lips. As we sit there, catching our breaths, the sound of footsteps rushing up the stairs breaks the silence. Backup has finally arrived. The door bursts open, and a wave of officers floods into the hallway, their weapons drawn, ready for a confrontation. The house is soon swarming with more officers and emergency medical personnel. The rest of the night is a blur of activity, securing the crime scene, collecting evidence, and giving our initial statements to the responding officers. Throughout it all, I keep a close eye on Olga. She's maintaining a professional demeanor, but I know the event of tonight will stay with her, just as they will with me. As dawn breaks, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, the reality of what we've been through starts to settle in. In the distance, the sound of church bells rings out, signaling the start of Christmas Day. We did our job. We protected the innocent. We brought a murderer to justice. And in this line of work, that's as close to a Christmas miracle as it gets.
Thank you for listening and delving with me into the dark together.
Please remember to leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you feel so inclined. The more engagement this video gets, the more YouTube will push my content to others.
Thus, the following will grow.
All stories read in this channel will be available on Spotify, iTunes, and just about everywhere else. Links in the description.
Thank you for listening and feeding the cause. We'll be seeing you